All right, so let me see if I can make this make sense. This guy right here is a knockoff of a third-party company that knocked off the intellectual property of Transformer Swoop. That's what we're dealing with here. Welcome back to eBEFOREi Video Reviews. We're looking at Swooper. All right, this is a figure by the company called Mech Fans Toys, and they made a figure that's a complete knockoff of another company, a third party named DX9. And DX9 had the little Warren Pocket, little Legion class figures. And so they upscaled it to be more deluxe, maybe even a little bigger than deluxe. So I thought it would be really cool to do a complete comparison between Swooper and Hasbro's recent Power of the Primes Swoop and see which one you think might earn your money. They're pretty close to the same price. Let's take a closer look at Swooper, and then we'll do a direct comparison in both modes. So Swooper, as I said, is basically a Transformer Swoop. And this is his Pteranodon mode. And the Pteranodon mode, I'm here to tell you, this looks utterly fantastic. You can see lots of detail in the wings, lots of in-plastic molding, and we'll get into the quality of that molding and give you, if you're new to third party, we'll give you more of an idea of what to expect here if you're comparing them to Hasbro. I will say that for a knockoff of a third-party company, the paint applications on this figure are really, really good. Now, I can't guarantee that they're all going to be like this, but every one that I've seen on other YouTube reviews and on my personal copy, they all look great. So let's take a closer look at the Pteranodon mode. The head sculpt is gorgeous. There's not really much else to say. His mouth does open and close. These are nice stiff joints. There is nothing loose on this figure whatsoever. But you do have the mouth hinge. You also have a hinge for the head. The head can look up and down. Now, unlike Power of the Prime Swoop, this back crest that becomes the back of the robot head, you can see that just like most swoops that we get, the robot head plugs into or pushes up against the Pteranodon beak. And the problem with a lot of the designs of Swoop is that it comes loose. It's just not a solid connection. This piece right here actually plugs into the head, so these two pieces are really married together. They're not coming loose at all. And I think that is very cool. Now, the Power of the Prime Swoop, there is no real connection. I mean, so if you try to move the head down, you're exposing the robot head. So you have to kind of get your thumb in there, and you got to move the whole thing, which is cool. It's workable, but there's that. That's kind of annoying too. My Power of the Prime Swoop, and believe me when I tell you, I take good care of the toys here in the eBEFOREi household. I really do. And the fact that this jaw has already come loose, and I've barely even played with it, really. I mean, I've posed him up and taken pictures and such, but the fact that I've got a loose jaw on my figure is really pretty disheartening. But anyway, we'll get into more of that later. Let's get back to Swooper. Now, another thing I mentioned with this third party is the quality of this paint. Look at that gold sparkle. This is all paint up here in the beak, and it just comes to life under these lights that I have here. He also comes with something that a lot of people really wished that the Power of the Prime Swoop came with, and that's his underwing rockets. You know, it's a very classic G1 swoop, and the Power of the Prime Swoop is very G1 inspired, but he does not have these, and so that's cool that they're added here. Other than that, it's pretty much what you would expect. Transformation is similar, but unique and still interesting. But you still have the back of the legs that are on the back of Swoop, as you did on the Power of the Primes, and the G1 as well, which I don't have a G1 copy here with me. Ask my son what happened to that. Oh man, I'm still crying. But yeah, the back of the legs are on the back of Swoop and Swooper. So there you go. Zoom out a bit so you can see some more detail. Just really good. Underneath most Swoops, you have a very clear chest, and this one, not quite as clear because the chest panels push down into each other, and so you kind of have it split in half, which is pretty neat. That's a creative thing. Again, I can't really give credit to Mech Fan Toys because it's a DX9 design, but I think that's really kind of genius stuff. For comparison, there's the bottom of Power the Prime Swoop. So a very clear chest where the head of the Pteranodon pushes down into the empty cavity. That happens here as well, but it's not as obvious because, again, these chest panels are pushed together, and I have to pull them apart to reveal the slot to put the head down. Now, one negative on this figure, or a couple of things, I suppose, in this mode, you do have an exposed ball joint right there. So that's kind of ugly. And then you also have robot fists that stick out on the back and they don't go anywhere because when you push the fists down, it exposes the pterodactyl feet. Now you can push this up against the body if you want to pose him in like flying mode, but the fists are still there. Now this is where creative paint can make a figure because the fists are black and kind of blends in with the back, so what your eyes are drawn to are the bottom of the Pteranodon feet. You know what I mean? Especially the gold paint on the underside of the feet. So it's certainly something that does work, but that might be something that you see as a negative, so I want to make sure to point it out. Now, because it is on a ball joint, you can angle the feet down, and it gives him a place to stand, which I quite like. I started the review off in this mode, and he stands very well, so I think that looks really nice. Now, the Power of the Prime Swoop, you could get a little bit of standing action as well, albeit you achieve it differently. With Power of the Primes, you can bring this whole head panel down like that, and then you push the feet like that, and he can stand as well, albeit not kind of leaning forward like Swooper. And then you can tuck the wings down, you can put them forward, you can put them backwards. It's however you want to have your swoop on display is, how you can display your swoop. That's simple. Now, as far as wing movement, I can move these all the way back as well, and I can take these down as well, but because I have these missiles here, I'm not going to get a whole lot of movement that way. Now, I could take those off and put them all the way down, or I can bend the wings backwards, although I don't think a real Pteranodon would be able to do quite that, but you can certainly do that with your own toy if you choose to. For a full open wingspan size comparison, they're pretty similar in size, in fact, just about identical in size. So you know from a size perspective what you're getting with if you decide to pick up Swooper. He is very much in the deluxe scale of the Pteranodon. This guy just looks so good. Now, also, he comes with a little Diaclone copy, a little tiny figure that, in fact, I don't remember which one came with him. I've got a couple of these guys floating around, and I think the blue one came with him, but I can't be 100% for sure. This guy is really tiny and full of articulation, which is cool. You see a face underneath the kind of helmet. The way that they painted that, you see two eyes, the nose, and the mouth, which is awesome, because this thing is so tiny. He does have articulation in both the shoulder. He's got little mini ball joint there, a hinge on the elbow, full movement of the legs. I mean, this guy is awesome. Now, unlike G1 Dinobots, which you could actually fit little tiny figures into them, these versions do not, but it is cool that they came with a little Diaclone figure, or a little knockoff Diaclone. That's super cool. He's also got a little ab crunch. I mean, this thing is fully articulated for the size. Again, you can see how huge my fingers are. I also have their version of Slag, and he came with a different color. I'm pretty sure I got the colors right here. Don't shoot the messenger if I'm wrong. And you get a red instead of a blue or blue instead of a red. But it's so cool that they come with these. Now, they also do have little mini magnets on the figure. And, if you want to have your own Cirque du Soleil, you can do that. They can do tricks, which is cool. There's some magnetic points on the figure. You can stick them to the figure. Kind of a pain to get it to work, so I'm not going to waste any time on that here. But you do have the little magnetic feet, which is neat. The instructions are in a different language, but the pictures are very clear. So these instructions are pretty decent. I didn't really have much of a problem with understanding what it was trying to get me to do. A little bit of an issue with the legs, but I did eventually get that figured out. There's the rest of the instructions. So cool, and you also get they got the name wrong. They said that that's Slagus, which this is Swooper, which is funny because you might say, hey, maybe they're just trying to tell you that Slagus is coming. Well, I have the Slagus instructions right here. And when I find his picture, he is correctly identified as Slagus. So that's just a mistake. That should have said Swooper. But whatevs, I'm cool with it either way. I can tell that the writing that they have underneath is exactly the same, so it looks like they made the mistake of calling him Slagus on both of these figures. Alright, so to get your figure transformed, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the arms out, and to do that, I'm going to just lift the arm out like this. That's on a hinge with a ball joint. And so basically what happens is this tucks inside when you transform, so you just pull it out when you're going back into robot mode, just like that. Now we're going to come around to the fists, and we're just going to bend these in. So when you do that, you're going to get the fist more exposed, and it gets rid of the pterodactyl claw, which you had that awesome gold paint right there, and that gets hidden up inside of the arm like that. All right, now we're going to come around to the back, and we're going to untab these legs, and these are in there pretty tight. So you just want to get in there and get some separation here. All right, I actually unpegged that off camera. That is in there super tight, so be careful. I even heard kind of a little bit of a click, and I hope that I didn't break anything. That's the disadvantage of third-party figures, is that the quality of plastic isn't quite, and not in all cases. Some third-party is very, very good. In this case, it's not brittle by any means, but man, that peg was super tight, and you wouldn't see something like that in a Hasbro release. Anyway, once you get those unpegged, and I moved the wings up out of the way too, you go in, and it's not what you'd think. You actually take the leg, and it's folded kind of backwards, all right? And then the entire hip joint, or the entire hip piece right here, will come down. Like that. We're going to rinse and repeat on the other side. We're going to bring the leg, unfold it, bring the entire hip piece down. Then I'm going to come around to the back, and we'll finish the legs. What we're going to do is we're going to come down to what become the feet, get that panel out of the way, rotate the foot out, and then collapse the panel. Same thing over here. Pull out the foot, collapse the panel. Now to complete the legs, you want to turn these around. So you're going to turn them right above the knee, matching the gold with the gold, and you know you've got your legs complete. Now we're going to come around to the front of the chest, and we're going to rotate this entire panel right here. So this whole thing is going to rotate, and you want to make sure that you've got good clearance around the back of the legs. Again, another unfortunate part with third party is you don't always have good clearance when you have to make moves like this. So just be real careful with your figure when you do this. Okay, you've got that one cleared, and I've got that side cleared, which opens up the middle of the chest. Now I'm going to close the bird mouth and lift the whole thing up, and I'm going to grab the entire head, and I'm going to wiggle it down. So look at the inside where that screw is. Let me get a closer look. See that screw right there? It's very tight. On my figure it was anyway, and I'm hearing for others as well. So I had to take a screwdriver and loosen that up. Again, that's another difference with third party. Sometimes you got to make little adjustments like that. Very rarely on a Hasbro release, outside of loose parts, which does suck. But anyway, so I want to take this entire head piece, and I'm going to wiggle it down. So when I move it down, notice that the inside of the screw is now facing down versus up. Now I'm going to take the head, make sure that chest is all the way opened up, and it's a very thin slot, but it does fit perfectly. I'm going to move that head down into the slot. Make sure that you untab the head. I didn't do it, it just kind of came undone by itself. But you want to go ahead and pull this plastic piece up so that you don't have the connection there, and then bring it down into the cavity, and it does kind of lock into place. Then I can take this little plastic headpiece right here and bend it inside like that. Now I'm going to take the arms that were up on that ball joint, and I'm going to make that clearance, and then I'm going to turn the ball joint in the elbow so the fist faces down. Do the same thing over here, get that up, turn the arm. Ooh, that is very tight. All right, we're almost done. Now we're going to take the wings, very G1, going to rotate them back like that. And you can put these any way you want. I like to bend them back a little bit. Again, very G1. And we're basically done. Now we can accessorize our figure. He comes with 2 swords. He has a transparent red, and he also has a painted silver. So you can choose whichever sword you like. And at this point, you're ready to stand him up, pose him up. Look at that thing. I mean, that's Swoop, ladies and gentlemen. I know it says Swooper on the box, but oh my goodness, this thing looks incredible. Really, really does. The transformation isn't super fun. It's got some creative bits to it, a lot of stiff panels and joints, and that's cool. But the way that this looks in both modes makes this, in my opinion, an absolute must-have. Let's compare his robot mode to Power the Prime Swoop. Now, you may have noticed in my Pteranodon mode, I have his wings reversed. I actually pulled out the little friction peg right there, and I put it on the other side, so it puts that silver bolt in the back, not in the front. And when you do that, it allows you to bring the wings inside like this and still get arm movement. So I can still fully move the arm like that where you couldn't in the other direction. So you can do that if you want. If not, it would look more like this in robot mode. And you can handle your swoop any way you like, but just for comparison's sake with these 2 figures, to make the wings look a little bit more G1, I'm going to tuck them back up. All right, so side-by-side comparison. Let's do the full turnaround with both figures. Yeah. So Power the Prime Swoop, which I like, don't get me wrong, but unpainted plastic wings. Now, you could certainly paint them yourself if you're inclined to do such creative things. But what you don't have with the Power the Prime Swoop are the wing missiles. You don't have that. Don't have the painted wings or the painted legs. I do think that the face sculpt, that's debatable on which one I like better. I kind of go back and forth. There's Power the Prime's Swoop. His head sculpt, I think, looks very good. I mean, I really do like the Power the Prime Swoop head. And then here is Swooper, very G1 cartoon. I mean, he's like, me Swoop. I mean, he just looks good. He looks awesome. So today, I think I like the Swooper face better. Maybe tomorrow I'll have a different opinion. Now, because of the more complex transformation, you end up with a robot mode that, in my opinion, is a lot sleeker. Look no further than the legs to see what I'm talking about. These are kind of just giant. And also, Swoop with Power the Primes is a combiner. Whether you like it or not, he is. And they had to make some sacrifices in order to get him to combine, such as this kind of atrocious head harness thing going on here. But I get it, and, because of that, some of the dimensions are going to be a little bit different. This guy doesn't have to worry about that. But you know what? If you're going to make a G1 figure or redo a G1 figure, do you think that the fans who are buying these things, which, yeah, Transformers are for kids, I get it, but if you're doing something to tickle the nostalgia feather, I mean, if you're doing something to please fans of the older toys, which are now older people like myself, wouldn't you just say, you know what, maybe the combiner gimmick isn't worth it. Let's just do the best dangum G1 Swoop we can do. And I don't think that this fits that bill, and I do think that this, from a visual standpoint, certainly does. But, it's more than just looks. Again, the transformation was a little bit on the tougher side. I don't recommend that you buy this for your kids because they will break it, I have no doubt. This is more for the adult collector that wants a deluxe size Swoop in their collection that looks like Swoop, both in the Pteranodon mode and in his robot mode. Let's look at the articulation that you get. The arm is on a ball joint, but there is some limitation to the movement. You can get up and down and all around, but right here, when you have it bent like that, and then you try to move the whole thing up, there's going to be a little bit of friction there. You get a ball joint right here in the elbow itself. The legs, due to transformation, go beyond 90 degrees. Actually, because of that part here, they go just exactly 90 degrees. If you want to go beyond, you're going to have to pull that out. Then you could get it beyond if you're trying to get into some crazy poses. You've got outward movement, and then the entire hip piece moves up like I showed you during transformation, but be careful because the wing is back there, and again, you don't want to hit that. There is waist articulation, I think. I'm just all the way wrong. There's no waist articulation here. Sorry, thought there was. There's not. And here's how Swooper looks with Power of the Primes, Grimlock, and Slag, which is pretty darn good. I think he fits in quite well. And then if you want to see what the Mech Fans Toys version of Slag looks like, which don't worry, I'll do a whole review soon. If you want to stand him in, oh man, does that ever look nice. So, yeah, and I think Grimlock, the Power of the Primes Grimlock fits in quite well. I think that actually blends perfect. Very, very nice together. So, yeah, I do recommend Swooper by all means, especially if you're trying to build your G1 Dinobot collection. Forgot to mention a few other pieces of articulation. The head is on a ball joint as well. You do have a little bit of limited movement, but he does turn around and can get a little bit of up and a little bit of down. And he does have ankle tilt, so there's a lot of decent posability that you can do with this figure. Unfortunately, I suck at posing figures, so I'm not going to do anything that exciting other than make them look pretty on the shelf. So that's my review of Mech Fans Toys Swooper. Do I recommend Swooper? I do. If you're an adult collector that loves G1-looking Dinobots, for sure pick them up. He's not really that expensive. You can get him imported at various sites. TF Direct has him, which is where I picked mine up. I believe that Sir Toys has this. Don't know about Big Bad Toy Store. You can certainly check. But the bottom line is he's available. Oh, Amazon.com has him as well. So if you just type in the word Swooper, at least at the time that I was looking to purchase, he was out there as well. So good luck if you want to bring this guy in. I just think he's gorgeous. I really do, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks again for watching eBEFOREi video reviews. I appreciate each and every one of you. There are a few ways you can help my channel. The biggest thing, just talk about me. Social media, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Instagram, talk about eBEFOREi video reviews. I see frequently where people say, who's your favorite reviewer? And just throw my name out there. It's very helpful. Also, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Turn on the notifications so you know every time I post a new video, which is about one a week these days. You can follow me at various places. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/eBEFOREi. I'm on Twitter at eBEFOREiNet, Instagram at eBEFOREiNet, and all of my YouTube videos can be found if you happen to be watching this in a rogue site somewhere else. All of my videos are youtube.com/eBEFOREiNet. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you back here again real soon.